Today is November 12th, 2015, and this is the CFTA Business Partner Solutions Showcase. I'm Michelle Ellington, and I'd like to thank all of our attendees joining us today. Today's 30-minute webinar is being recorded. Both the recording and slides will be made available on the CFTA website. The presentation is estimated to run about 25 minutes, with the remaining time dedicated for Q&A. Feel free to send any questions using the questions dialog box, either during the presentation to add it to the queue, or feel free to save it for the end. I want to extend a special thank you to today's presenter, tsaADVET. Terry is the Vice President of tsaADVET Technologies, and he'll be discussing the numerous parameters surrounding securely managing documents in an EDMS system. And Terry, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure. I would like to also extend my thank yous. I'd like to thank CFTA for these opportunities and for all the attendees who joined in. The agenda I have planned for you today is typically a new administrator orientation session that we do, and it's typically about an hour long, involving Q&A sessions and so on. I'm going to try to cut that down to 30 minutes today, since there won't be a Q&A until the very end. And we're doing our best here to keep this informative and entertaining as well. You can't have a session called Document Security for Dummies without having some fun with it. So we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to do this little analogy leading into the technology. Imagine that you've been tasked with the responsibility of securing the crown jewels. Okay? That is a daunting task, a high responsibility. The obvious solution for that is to go to the Tower of London, find the most secure room in the entire building, and lock them up. And that would work. That would provide absolute maximum security. But there is one flaw with that approach, and that is maximum security is fantastic, but it's not realistic. There are authorized individuals who will want access to that crown jewels. The Queen, visiting dignitaries, whoever it may be, are going to need access to them. So what you have to do is you have to reach the goal that we believe is the ultimate goal, which is reasonable security. So the way to do that is to put a guard at the door. It's still locked, but now it's secured. Someone is there keeping track of who comes in and comes out. And now you've reached reasonable security, which gives you the peace of mind knowing that the values are locked away, but the authorized people have access to them. The problem with security of any kind is the illusion of security, in which you've got a secured room not knowing that there is an open access to the secured items, and that's what we all want to avoid. So how does all of this relate to engineering document management? We're going to put some analogies here in that the crown jewels are your documents. More specifically, it's the information contained on those documents. That's what is important. The room that you lock those crown jewels in is your network of file servers, where you put those files on a server and you want to secure them. The best way of securing them is through a database, a relational off-the-shelf database like Oracle or SQL, and that would then provide the ability to maintain records about the various activities involving those documents. The guard in this scenario is your engineering document management system. I'm going to talk about ours, but I'll also draw some references to other systems as well. And the unsecured access is the illusion of security that you want to prevent. You don't want to go to all the trouble of setting up a secure document management system only to find out that you have unsecured links to the file servers, the documents, and the information that you're trying so hard to keep up with and keep secured. Our document management system is called Falcon DMS. I only have 2 quick slides about it. Falcon DMS is a category of software product called Engineering Document Management Systems. It creates records in a database, and then those documents that are secured by the system have a record that is maintained information about who has accessed them for what purposes at what times and so on. Falcon DMS is both a Windows and a web-based document management system. Our Windows system is called Falcon DocMan, and our web system is called Falcon SVP. I mention that to draw some similarities to those of you who may be familiar with the Blue Cello product called Meridian. Meridian has a product called Meridian Enterprise, Windows-based solution, and Meridian Explorer, which is a web-based solution. Ours is very similar. DocMan is the equivalent of that, and SVP is the equivalent of Explorer. For any of you who are familiar with the Bentley ProjectWise technology, it's very similar as well. DocMan would be the same as ProjectWise Enterprise, and Falcon SVP would be the same as ProjectWise Explorer. So we're all doing the same things in slightly different ways with slightly different methodologies, but ultimately we're trying to secure the documents in a, quote, reasonable way as opposed to absolutely locking those things down. In our system, and all these systems are similar but slightly different, in our system it cannot be stressed enough that everything we do in our system is done through the relational database, and that is done on top of the operating system and networking security protocols that have been established. If you're using Universal Naming Convention or File Transfer Protocol, map drives, hidden mounts, shares, and so on, all of those system level decisions will have a dramatic impact on what the document management system is able to do as far as providing security. Reasonable security is accomplished by balancing your system level security options with the project-specific database-driven security options that are available to you through your document management system, whatever that may be. I've listed a few questions that need to be considered as you're establishing and maintaining a document management system, some of which are which projects need to be secured. Not every project tree on a server needs the level of security and management that some others do. In Falcon, we can have secured and unsecured projects sitting side by side. I'm sure the other systems are capable of that as well. You need to decide where those documents and project trees are going to be stored, how the system will connect to it, again, using UNC or FTP or shared drives and so on. How can we be sure that no unsecured access, no hidden backdoor exists? I need to make sure that that is done, and that is, again, your EDMS vendor working with your IT people to make sure that those backdoors are boarded up, for lack of a better word. If a working copy is used, where will that working copy be located when a document is being edited? Little things like, should USB ports be disabled at the local machine? All of those are questions to consider. And then last question there is, how will the decisions you make impact the performance of your system? Here's a prime example of that. In this example I'm about to run through, we're looking at 3 different people accessing a series of documents on a common server. When I go into here we're looking at a person who's come in and they've asked to open up an AutoCAD file that has a couple of references. And that AutoCAD file is located 3 or 4 levels deep within a folder structure. Using this file handling method of number 1, it would grab the original file, check it out, bring it to the local machine, recreate the path, allow you to do everything that you do. When you check it back in, it would clean the path and put everything back on the server and do whatever revision control parameters were enabled and so on. But that is just one method, one way of doing file manipulation with a working folder. In this scenario, somebody else is going to the same project, grabbing the same files, they're opening them up for modify, but rather than coming to that particular user's local machine, it's going to a working server and doing the exact same functionality, but nothing ever comes to the local desktop of the person who's doing the file manipulation. It still does the folder cleanup, it does the revision control, but nothing ever touches the actual local hard drive of the user. Lastly, this methodology here, somebody's coming in, they're going to a managed document, they're saying, I want to work on that document. And using this method, this is what we call direct access method, no copy of the file is ever made whatsoever. This is simulating a VAX mainframe type of environment where the user sitting at their desktop is manipulating the original active file on the server live, so that everything they do is live and active and visible to other users that are referencing that document and so on. There's great advantages to this, but there's also disadvantages to that as far as adding network bandwidth for multiple people doing that simultaneously with large files. So those are some of the considerations that need to be made there. Is we want to secure our documents, we want to make sure our system is safe and secure, but we also want to make sure it's reasonably secure and functional. Once you get past the operating system and networking security, some of the categories of database-driven security that we work with are, we categorize them as identity security. In Falcon, every user, whether you're using Active Directories or using groups and names within the database itself, every user has an identity, and every user is a member of a group or multiple groups, depending on what their particular role is. A user that has privileges, granted capabilities, are done on a per user or per group basis. A user that has no specific individual privileges inherits his or her abilities based on the groups that they're associated with. The identity security is really important because it plays a pivotal role in project and behavioral security configurations that are done also in the database as well. What you're seeing on the screen there is our standard administrator, where we've chosen a group, and then from there you can modify what we call the access control lists, and the ACLs contain all of the file manipulation capabilities that can be granted or taken away from, again, an individual person or a group of people, depending on how you want to achieve that level of functionality. Things like you can create new documents, check them out, check them in, modify, rename, but you can't delete. Those types of things could be done on an absolute individual basis or a group basis. Project security is another category that is allowing the capability of having non-administrator super user type of capabilities. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to do project specific security privileges by a project leader, if you would like to think of it along those ways. I've done some screen captures here of some various examples. This is from our University of Pennsylvania customer, Chris Hansen, and what you see here are folder property permissions that have been granted for various people from this particular project. So here, the highway engineer people have the ability to create, modify, view, move, print, and so on, but no delete. When Chris Hansen specifically goes into this project, the only thing Chris is allowed to do is view. And anybody from the bridge engineering department, they have create, view, and print, but not modify, move, delete, or rename. None of those choices were established at the root level. None of those choices were established at the operating system level or the identity or the group level. This was done at a project level, to where the person who is in charge of that particular project tree is able to use the project folder security capabilities to modify and create a very granular level of control as to this group of people could do these things, this group of people cannot, and they have absolute control over that. Behavioral security are what we call permission overrides. Let's say, for the sake of the discussion, that you are authorized to come into my project and you're allowed to do anything that the system is capable of doing. Create new files, rename them, delete them, modify them, all those types of things. We have a capability in our system called status condition, and these are absolutely 100% defined by you. And what they do is they alter the standard behavior on a temporary or permanent basis. So let's say I have a label of document status condition called active, and when a document is active, I can do all the things that I'm normally allowed to do. In document status capabilities, what I could do is I could go in and I could change the status condition of a document from active to, say, waiting for approval or 30% submittal or any label you want to give it, and that has behavioral impact. It can say that under normal conditions when a document is active, these people have their normal capabilities, but while it's out for review or waiting for approval, again, you decide what those labels are, these are the behaviors. The person who can normally open it for modify can no longer do so, but they could view it. They would or would not be allowed to modify the metadata, descriptive, searchable information in the database about that file. You could have one set of rules for one group or individual person and another set of completely different behavioral rules for somebody else in a different group with the exact same label. So in essence, the waiting for approval could mean one thing for one group and a completely different thing for another group, and you're in complete charge of that because it's all done through the database. So we've got identity security, we've got behavioral security. Now we're going into the document file-specific security, and this is done on an absolute per-file basis. Document-specific security measures can be defined using a lock and key methodology. In using this system, each secured document can be assigned a specific numerical value, and only users with a key of a matching value or higher would have access to that file. So for example, I go in and I grab my document and I assign it a security requirement of, let's say, a level 4. Right? Anybody who has a key of level 3 would never even know that that document exists. When they go into the system as they are executing search queries, the document would never show up because it's above their pay grade. The security level of that document is beyond your privileges in this scenario. If they, instead of doing searches, were visually browsing through a folder tree of various project folders and documents and so on, again, based on document level security, it's not like that document would show up in the list and they would have no access to it. It will completely disappear and they will never know it exists until one of two things happen. Either you lower the security requirement on the document itself from a 4 down to a 3, and then they would be able to see it, or their security privileges would have to be updated to like a level 4 in order for them to see documents that have that 4 requirement. Again, you can get very, very granular in how you control this, but this is beyond folder security, it's beyond identity, it's beyond behavioral. Now you're going into a very specific document and saying, in order to even know this thing exists, you must have this level of capability. And again, it's all done through the document management security privileges. And lastly, as far as considerations that need to go into place, is you're going to all of this trouble of taking documents and putting them on a server, securing access to them, keeping records of who went in and what they did and why they did it and all those types of things. All of that would be necessary but less effective if you didn't have some way of tracking and reporting on those capabilities that are going on. In Falcon, there are a couple of different levels or ways of doing tracking and reporting. The core built-in, you turn it on or turn it off. You can see in the administrator right here, there's a simple check mark button here that says Enable Session Accounting. And what that does is when it's turned on, you configure the types of activities that you would like to track and be able to report upon. Things like logins, who modified documents, In this scenario here, I'm not bothering to keep track of who viewed a particular document, although that's just a click of a button. But anything else that happens to a document, I'm tracking and able to report on. Who created a document, copied one, deleted one. This eliminates those scenarios where you're all working on a shared server, like a drive P, and somebody came in the day before while you were away and deleted one of your files, but they'll never admit it, and there's no way of proving that so-and-so deleted your file either by accident or whatever. This session accounting keeps track of who did what when, and it allows you then to generate reports generating of various styles, and it works directly with Crystal reports so that you can tailor as many different custom reports as you want. But the standard reports give you the ability to generate reports on exactly who did what and when. What it does not do, what it's incapable of doing from a pure session accounting capability, is understanding why they did what they did. Session accounting, again, will keep track of who did what when, but it won't answer why. So Falcon has, and again, all of the things that I'm showing you in Falcon, if you're already using Blue Cello's, Meridian, or ProjectWise, or some other document management system, your system should have some functionality that is in some ways similar to this, and it's something to consider and have a discussion with your vendor on them. But in Falcon, we do provide this feature of tracking why. It's a journal, a diary, protect yourself feature, a PYA feature called document notes. And document notes allow you to record exactly why you did what you did at a particular time, because you know the system is tracking who did what when. This allows you to put in the user to put in themselves an explanation of why. So for example, I check out a file, I make changes, I put it back, that either does or does not result in the creation of a new revision. You can give the user who's doing that the opportunity of putting in a document note saying, I did this because I was instructed to do so by whomever. They can even cut and paste information from an email system or a document. They could put that inside of the document note as well. To my knowledge, there's no limit of the number of document notes that you can have associated with a given file. You can create different note categories so that you have, because all of the notes are, for authorized people, searchable, and you could filter it out that way so that you can have common notes, you can have revision notes, you could have engineering change notification note categories if indeed that's something that you choose to do. You could even have document notes, instead of being an optional, the user must think to do it type of scenario, you could have it be an automated interruption of the check-in procedure, so that somebody checks out a file and makes changes and checks it back in. Instead of just immediately going back in, it would stop briefly, pop up the document note dialog box saying, hey, you're checking the file back in that you've made changes to. Would you like to add a note, and prompt them to consider adding a descriptive explanatory note of why they did exactly what they did. Okay, according to my clock here, I've got about 4.5 minutes available for any Q&As. I'll just wrap this up as far as a summary. The critical security components in our view of the world are the balancing of all of those categories: operating system and network securities, file transfer methodologies, identity security, project security, behavioral security, document-specific security, and then the tracking and reporting of all of those things on a standard and customized basis. I'll hand it back to you, Michelle, and however you go about doing the Q&A stuff.
Okay, great. No, that was excellent. I know personally at the University of Kentucky, we're struggling with this right now. We have a homegrown solution that meets our needs, good enough. Unfortunately, good enough that we might not, take the jump as soon as we need to get to a more user-friendly system. And I think Falcon really is that system. So just to ask you, so basically, when you're in this system, there's no need, if you have your workflow in place, to even do closeout anymore, is there?
Well, I think it's up to each individual agency or university to make those choices. Technically, no. On our end of it, we see no reason to where that would be an absolute requirement, other than just established procedures and
Sure.
people's comfort level and so on.
Because I know that in our area we have like the renovations team, and they work in their served directory, and we harvest from that. But honestly, they could just work directly in this system, and then we could harvest directly from this system, and it cuts out that whole communication of when we're able to pull that information in and when they have it ready for us. That's great.
One addition to that, I'll give you an example, is the University of Pennsylvania. If they were using Falcon for every aspect of their document management, you're absolutely correct, they would not need that. But currently, what they're doing is they're doing their file manipulation on the live projects, being modified on a manual basis using some other technologies that they have, and then when the project is ready for a closeout, they hand it over to Falcon, and we maintain the historical record that is web available and so on. So yeah, we're very flexible as to how much of our technologies you want to take advantage of or not, and it's very configurable.
Okay, and so if someone out there has an existing system with a database behind it, can Falcon consume a database dump and eliminate a lot of that ground-up work?
We've done a lot of that. And not just in this industry, as you are aware, but maybe the attendees are not. The higher education industry is one industry that we provide solutions to. Others are transportation and pharmaceutical and process engineering and so on and so forth. There's a document management provider in one of those industries that recently went out of business, and we have been all year long replacing systems at various customers who were sort of left in the lurch. It's very common for us to go in and take over either a homegrown or failed system, the only time we run into any issues is if the other system was doing like hashing methodologies where a terry.dgn is not really a terry.dgn in the database. It's a 0107a.dgn where the file name is hashed. And even those they're just a little bit more work for us. It's not as easy as simply pointing to an actual file of an actual name and bringing in the metadata. But yeah, it's very common. We do that quite frequently, as I'm sure other vendors do as well.
Sure. And can you expand on the databases that Falcon can connect with and integrate with?
Many years ago, we've been doing this for over 30 years, and many years ago we worked with 6-7 different database vendors. Over the decades, all of our customers have consolidated to one of two. It's either an Oracle-based system or a Microsoft SQL-based system. We don't see anything else anymore, to be honest. And as a result, all of our development has just sort of migrated to that level of it's either one or the other.
And what about ERP systems, both SAP and Famous?
Again, we don't replicate. We're a document management system that is able to integrate with those systems. We don't want to reinvent those wheels.
Sure.
But we have, like a lot of vendors, we have what is called an API, an application programming interface. It's a programming language that allows technologies to communicate. And our customers have integrated Falcon with those systems, GIS-based systems, SharePoint, like a project collaboration system, things like asset management systems. So we do what we do. They do what they do. We communicate to each other through their API and our API and standard protocols like XML files and things like that.
Great, and about the security level, you can literally go granular as the user needs, correct? As the admin needs, you can go down to the folder level, or is it file level security as well?
All the way down to an individual file.
And that's exactly what we need today. Well, that about wraps up all of the questions that we have today. Terry, thank you. I personally want to learn more about this system. Document management is one of those areas of opportunity for universities as we continue to expand into geospatial solutions. Hooking on those solutions to an archive document is really the next level of information gathering that we need to support daily operations. So thank you so much, Terry. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
And I'd also like to thank all the attendees who joined us today. The next webinar in the Business Partner Solution Showcase is scheduled for 1 p.m. on December 1st. And the presenter will be Tom Finkel with Imaginet Technologies. Tom will be providing an introduction on Imaginet Technologies, facilities management solutions and services. And I hope you all can join us. I do want to let you know that all of the webinars in this series are live on the CFTA website. And for more information on the next webinars in this series and future webinars in 2016, visit our website at www.cfta.org.